Dab on them. I really hope the dab goes away. I hate the dab. It is Carolina and everybody else in the NFC South. This division is kind of trashy, but we're here to talk about it. Kyle Gaffner is here. I'm Adrian Fedque. Any doubt in your mind that anybody else can win this division except for Carolina?
I don't think so. I think it's a sure win layup for them. They're, going back to, I don't know if they'll go back to the Super Bowl. They're going to run through this division. There's nobody really standing in their way. And you know how it used to be in this division, you would have a different leader every single year. It would be the Falcons, the Saints when they were good, but not anymore. There's just one solid team that's going to romp through everybody.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up because there was a stretch where they had a division winner. It was a different division winner every single year, and now I think this is Carolina's potential third in a row. Yeah, it might be fourth, but I think it's three.
I think it's 3-2 because it would be the Saints, and then it would go back to the Falcons, and then the Panthers, and then the lowly Bucks have just been down there since 2002. So nothing really to get excited about right there. But they're up and coming finally.
Yeah, we'll get to them in a second. We'll start with the Panthers. All right, so the big news this offseason, you had Josh Norman, and then you rescinded the franchise tag, and now you're left with a pretty shitty secondary. So Ben-Wickery and I guess James Bradbury are your starting cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I like Ben-Wickery a little bit, but it's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, because you lose a talent like you had in Josh Norman. You could rely on him shutting down one side of the field because how good of a defender he was. But there was that drama there, whatever happened with him in the front office or whatever happened with him. He was very cocky and arrogant, and they just let him walk. I think they still have confidence in because it's a very strong defense still.
Oh, yeah, it's still a stacked defense. It's just a little bit bad in the back end there. But that front seven's still very much dominant. Yeah, so now Norman, it'll be interesting to see what he does in Washington because in Carolina they like to play a lot of zone, and Norman excels in zone coverage. And this could be something like Nnamdi Asomugha when he went from Oakland to Philadelphia, and he really, really struggled because in Oakland he was a press man corner, and in Philly they had him playing a lot of zone, and he was lost in Philly. And now we're seeing these reports in training camp where Norman is kind of struggling in Washington, kind of deriving from topic a little bit. But the point is he was a perfect fit for this scheme, and that's why he was so good in Carolina last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know they like to play a lot of man-to-man out there now too. So it's going to be interesting what happens with him if he still brings that type of swagger that he has, even though he's been struggling. So it'll be interesting to see if it was a good decision to pull back on paying him all that money, which I think it was because he's an older corner too. Not a lot of people realize he's 30 years old already.
Yeah, I think he's 29 or 30, one of those two. And, it's a 5-year deal. It's a ridiculous amount of money. And when you pay a cornerback a lot of money, not a lot of these work out, really, except for, Darrelle Revis. So, especially, he's going to be, 30, 31, 32 years old when he hits the middle of this contract. So, but that's Washington's problem now. Let's get on to the rest of this team. We'll get back to the defense in a second. Let's talk about Cam Newton. 45 total touchdowns last season. Won the league MVP, 35 touchdowns through the air, 10 on the ground. What are your thoughts on Cam Newton? Is he the real deal? Is he legit? Or was it kind of like a one-year wonder kind of thing?
I don't think it was. The guy has made huge strides over his career. When I saw him doing this last year, I was impressed because I didn't think he had it in him. I thought he was a one-trick pony. Thought he could just run the ball out. He was good at scrambling, but we saw a lot more of the precision passing. Yeah, he threw the ball high sometimes, but he was right on the money. He actually turned in front of our eyes. He evolved in front of our eyes into a quarterback. It was a joy to see, and he deserved the MVP. Now that he gets one of his big weapons back, too, I think it's going to help him even more with, Kelvin Benjamin coming back.
Yeah, that's the craziest part about all this is obviously Benjamin went out before the season last year. Ted Ginn stepped up, had the best year of his career. Greg Olsen was the guy that really excelled, went over 1,000 yards again as a tight end. So they put up the most points in the league despite the lack of depth at wide receiver. That's the crazy part. about all this. And yeah, you're right. He has matured as a passer. He's a lot better in the pocket. He's a lot more accurate. His decision making has gotten a lot better. So I mean, I don't think he's like the top quarterback in the game, but I think he's in the top 5, in the top 3 even. I think I had him as the third ranked guy. So he's definitely there.
You got to respect him with his legs and now with his arm even. His decision-making has improved, and he gets one of his major weapons. You had touched on it. He was throwing to guys like Ted Ginn and Philly Brown last year.
Yeah.
You get him with Devin Funchess has stepped up, the rookie. It looks like he's going to have a bigger role in this offense too. And Greg Olson's a stud. He has been, even in Chicago now with him, he's the top receiver there.
Yeah.
With Kelvin Benjamin and him coming back too.
Yeah, so all of a sudden the receiving core looks a little bit better with Benjamin. And the way Newton likes to throw that back shoulder ball, and Benjamin, he can kind of go up and get it. He's got great body control. He's got size, and he's going to complement him very, very well. They have a good running game too there in Carolina. Jonathan Stewart kind of always been underappreciated by a lot of NFL fans. He's always hurt, but when he's playing, this guy's a monster. And he's a really good in between the tackles type of runner.
He's bigger too. He's kind of like a bowling ball. He's got the speed, but he's a bigger guy. He can run outside and inside the tackles. And the injuries might have helped him because he's a little bit older, but he doesn't have all the tread on the tires for a running back his age. So he's still got a lot of youth left in those legs.
Yeah, just because he had D'Angelo Williams there all those years, so kind of helped them out. And this offensive line, it's like kind of like an underrated one.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have like a star, except maybe Ryan Cleal, if you consider him a star.
He's very good.
Yeah, he's very good. Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner are really, really solid pair of guards. The big revelation last year was Michael Orr, because he came off a season in Tennessee where he was absolutely terrible. And then he comes to Carolina, and he resurrects his career.
He did. We thought he was going to be out of the league at one point. He won the Super Bowl with the Ravens, left, went to Tennessee, signed that. They cut him. They got rid of him. He looked atrocious, and then he did. They came over here. Mr. Blindside himself came over and protected Cam Newton, and he had a better year. And they were lacking that when they lost what was his name? They had a great left tackle there for like 10 years.
Talking about. Yeah, I forget his name too. I forget his name too.
But he was great, so they left a big hole when he surprisingly just retired out of nowhere, and they picked up Michael Orr, and he stepped up and played a great role.
Yeah, dude, this is terrible. I see Jordan Gross.
Yeah, I said Jordan Gross.
That's his name. So yeah, that's crazy that he was able to come in there and he stepped it up, and he kind of had like a good first couple years in Baltimore, then he kind of faded away and. Terrible in Tennessee, and then somehow Carolina brings him in and he's good again. So moving on to the defense, obviously we know how good Luke Kuechly is, but do people realize how good Kawan Short is? That's the question.
I don't think they do. Another underappreciated guy, doesn't get a lot of love because he's in the middle of that defense. He had a great. What did he have? 11 sacks this year.
Yeah, he was a fucking monster.
Incredible. And he gets overshadowed because I think Star Lotulelei was taken before him in the draft, so a lot of focus is on that, but he is incredible. He's very quick. He can push the pocket. He can get to the passer. He can stuff the run, too. This front line it's very good. You got Coney Ealy there as well. Star Lotulelei is nothing to bat an eye about, but Kawan Short being the later pick is better than him.
Yeah, I mean, that D-line is stacked. Charles Johnson, I mean, he's aging a little bit, but Coney Ealy is the guy that's like up and coming. And then even some depth guys, Mario Addison. You got Wes Horton, and the D tackle I really like that's a rookie is Vernon Butler. I like him from I believe he went to Louisiana Tech.
Yes.
Yes, and I remember watching tapes of him. I thought he looked pretty good. So that's a really, really good D line there. And then moving on to the linebackers, Thomas Davis finally stayed healthy last year, and I'll tell you what, nobody could run the ball on this defense, especially when you try to, go out outside the perimeter. You couldn't run on Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly. They're too rangy and they cover too much ground.
There's nothing you can say enough about him, Mr. Thomas. Great player. He had all these knee surgeries. You thought his career was over. He stepped it up. And it was a shame when he broke his hand in the playoff game, and I'm glad he was able to play in the Super Bowl just because he's such a key cog to that unit as well as Kuechly is. They're like the center of that whole team right there. A lot of heart in Thomas Davis, converted safety, as we know. And they just seem to plug they're kind of like Seattle, they remind me of. They lose guys, but they bring in they're very good at drafting too. So they bring these guys in the rotation. They got Shaq Thompson too, that they got a little bit ago. So he's probably going to step up when Thomas Davis does retire, but doesn't look like we're going to see him slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, I was about to bring his name up, Shaq Thompson. He was drafted in the first round, I believe, last year. So he's pretty good as well. And, there is one guy in the secondary. It's funny because, we got all these former Eagles that stunk for us. And then they go to other teams and, shine. Fucking Kurt Coleman.
Out of nowhere.
What the hell, man? He best year of his career by far last year. I mean, he was really, really good for them, and I had a bunch of picks. I'm just bewildered by this.
You're befuddled because it's like, where was this when you were playing in Philadelphia? You look completely lost. You were at best a special teamers when you were here, and then you go to Carolina and you're a ball hawking safety.
Oh, I never thought I'd hear the words ball hawk and Kurt Coleman in the same sentence.
It did. He proved it this year. It was incredible. I didn't think I was watching the same guy.
Oh, man. All right. Let's get to overrated, underrated. Underrated, there's a bunch. I mean, you got Kawan Short, Shaq Thompson. I mean, I don't know if he's really necessarily underrated because he's only his second year. But Benny Benwikere, I like him, the cornerback. But he goes from the number 3 guy now to the number 1 guy. So it's really interesting to see what he's going to do this year. And then those guards, Andrew Norwell, Trey Turner. So
Trey Turner is so underrated. He's one of the top guards in the league.
Yeah. So a bunch of underrated guys on this team.
Addison is an underrated pass rusher too. I really like him off the edge.
Mm-hmm. So overrated, I don't know. Not really anybody except for Kurt Coleman.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. We'll see if he's a one-year wonder. Let's see if he can repeat this production that he did this year.
Yeah. So that's about it. They got no one else that's overrated on this team.
It's tough to pick these type of guys. I don't think there's many overrated guys because you look at them, they're solid across the board. A lot of guys that are very, very good.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now because we both have them finishing in second place. Oh, by the way, Carolina. I have them going 11-5. What do you have them going?
I got them going 12-4.
There you go. All right, so Tampa Bay. We both have them going second in the division. So second year now for Jameis Winston. Now, apparently, he has lost some weight during the offseason, so he's laid off the crab legs.
He's not going to places and stealing them anymore. That's for sure. Must be all that southern heat. Maybe down there up at Tampa Bay, maybe the further he goes up, the better he gets. But he shed some weight. Looks taking it a lot more serious. He could probably scramble a little bit better because he looked real husky last year. I mean, he was a monster last year. He was huge.
Yeah.
His footwork and everything, too.
Are you one of those guys that thinks Winston's better than Mariota?
I did. I actually made a bet with a guy last year that Winston would be better than Mariota, and he turned out to be.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think so, too. I guess it's somewhat close, but, Winston – I mean, if you want to build a team with a quarterback, Winston's the guy you want. And I love his kind of leadership qualities, so that's where he wins it for me.
Lost one game in college. What was it? 1?
2.
Was it 2? Still pretty impressive.
I think it's 2. I don't know. Either way, I mean, shit.
That's incredible. For only losing 1 or 2 games, his leadership is bar none. He's got a cannon of an arm. He's very smart. I mean, he looked a little rough at times, but, man, did he really put a hurting on the Eagles.
Oh, Jesus. Let's not bring that game up again. Oh, my God. Doug Martin ran for 800 yards in that game.
Look, they made it look like he was AP out there. I was like, come on, he's not that good. But he's a guy to keep an eye on, too, the muscle hamster. He had a very good season this year. He's another guy that's injury prone, that's hurt all the time. He was finally healthy for once, and he had a really good season running the ball. He's a guy that can catch the ball out of the outfield or out in the flat too.
I'll tell you what, that running back pair of he and Charles Sims might quietly be the best pair in the league.
Wow, now that's a statement.
Depending on how good you think Charles Sims is, I'm like, it's how they kind of mesh together, because Martin is like that in between tackles kind of guy. He's more of the runner, and Charles Sims is strictly pretty much a pass catcher. So it's two different types of backs, which is why they work well together. I don't know if I would say that they're the best. Maybe I would say they're a top 5 pair. I really like Charles Sims though.
He's good. Don't you think it hurts them, though? Don't you think you'd like to see Sims run a little more because it kind of hampers them, because then you would know what he's going to do, kind of like they did out in Cincinnati a little while ago when you knew Gio Bernard was going to be in there. You knew they were throwing the ball, and then vice versa with Jeremy Hill. So if they mix it up a little bit, I think it would be a very dynamic duo, and they'd be deadly that way.
Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard should be the best duo in the league, but Jeremy Hill had a bad year last year, so that's why I don't consider them. Now, another duo that's going to be pretty formidable at wide out, Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson. Mike Evans is on the cusp of being a star.
Yep.
He had a bunch of drops last year, though, which kind of hurt him a little bit. But, I mean, this is another one of these guys in that draft where, I mean, what was 2014 draft with Odell Beckham and Samuel
Loaded.
Just loaded, and all these guys are like these huge animals that can just go up and get it. It's unbelievable. Kelvin Benjamin was in that draft too.
Mm-hmm. They can high point the ball. He's got huge mitts. He's got long strides. The way I watched him in the preseason, the way he was adjusting to the ball, he just looked like a giant among boys out there.
Yeah, Johnny Manziel should be thanking him a lot for all that Coke money he got.
Yeah, basically, I think Mike Evans made Johnny Manziel. You know how they always give the love to the quarterback? Well, it's the wide receivers a lot of times that make the quarterbacks look good.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I mean, Gerald McCoy is still there. He's a beast. Yeah, I really like that rookie cornerback they got, Vernon Hargreaves. I mean, I like Jalen Ramsey a lot. Obviously, I had him rated as the best player in the draft. But Hargreaves was my second-ranked corner, and I didn't think he was like that far off from Ramsey. He's going to be really good, I think.
He's going to be incredible. I've watched him in preseason, and in one game he had 3 picks. The guy just knows where to be at the right place at the right time. He's a great cover corner. He's fast. He's got great fluidity in his hips. He's got good footwork. I mean, this guy's going to be something special. They haven't had somebody like that since Rondé Barber. It's been a long time since they've had a corner.
Yeah. All right. So, and that defensive line, we shall see, because they don't get after the quarterback a lot. Mm-hmm. Gerald McCoy kind of gets all their pressure. So, and like it's amazing the numbers that McCoy puts up, because he doesn't get any help from his defensive ends. But this year it might be a little bit different. I mean, Robert Ayers isn't necessarily a pass rusher per se, but he's a solid defensive end. And William Golston looks like he could be on the cusp of being at least something there for them.
He's decent, and I really like Noah Spence that they got this year too. Yeah. So somebody that could get after the quarterback. We know about his situation. So I think Gerald McCoy is going to get a little help. So I'm excited to see how he plays too. Bucs had a decent draft, and let's not forget about Levante David. Still a great guy in the middle of the defense.
I just haven't gotten to him yet. Yeah, dude, Levante David is a beast. I mean, he was a former college safety. He's playing linebacker, and he can literally do everything. He can cover, he can play the run, he can blitz. He's got a lot of speed, can go sideline to sideline, got a lot of range. So David, I mean, he could be, he is a kind of underrated. Like, he's a star, but like no one realizes how much of a star he is too.
I know he gets no love, and it's probably because there's a lot of blackouts on Tampa Bay games too, so you don't get to see him a lot of the time. But that guy is the heart of that defense right there, and he has been for a while. And then they got the Gerald McCoy, and then they brought in – and I think Hargreaves should take over one of their cornerback spots, because I don't know how Brent Grimes is going to start over this young kid. Like, Brent Grimes was good, but I think he's getting a little long in the tooth now. Yeah,
I got Hargreaves starting on my depth chart for them. So I mean, I don't know what their decision's going to be come Sunday, but I do have him as the number one cornerback.
He should be, and Werner's nothing to bat an eye about. He's a decent corner.
Yeah, I think he's getting older. Because like he hasn't been good over recent years. Brent Grimes, I'm kind of with you. He's just like a guy at this point. I mean, he's better than solid, I guess. No, better than average. I mean, better than average, but slightly. But like Hargrave, it's Hargrave should be the guy.
Yeah, Grimes should be in there in nickel situations, cover the slots, because there's no way he should be taking one of the two better, options out on an offense. He's getting a little older now. And Werner, to your point, he's been in the league, I think, 6-7 years. So he's getting up there. He's starting to get to the, that peak in his career where he might be thinking to go maybe move to safety.
Yeah. All right, we'll get to underrated, overrated at this point. Any names you got?
Grimes has got to be overrated.
There you go.
I never thought Brent Grimes was as good as they projected him to be. When you would hear them, boast him up on ESPN, like, oh, this guy's phenomenal. He's had some really awesome picks. Don't get me wrong, but I never viewed him as like a top 5, top 10 corner, a shutdown corner.
Okay. I guess I'll throw a couple underrated guys out there. I mean, Robert Ayers. I think Robert Ayers is more than solid. He's very good, I think.
Very good.
Yeah, he just doesn't have a lot of sack numbers, which might cause people to underrate him and undervalue him. I like William Golson. I talked about him before. Overrated. I mean, I don't really know if you can classify Austin Seferian-Jenkins as overrated, but he hasn't really panned out yet. I think Cameron Brate is a better tight end. I believe they have him ahead of Seferian-Jenkins on the depth chart. Levante David, I mean, we talked about him already. I'll throw a name out there. I really like Ali Marpet.
Come on. That was my guy.
The second-year guard from fine, you can talk about him.
No, go ahead. No, you said it. Go ahead.
Because, dude, I remember last year because I watched the scouting combines, and I know like the scouting combine, it's a little bit deceiving sometimes, but he really, really caught my eye because of how he could move for such a big man, and he showcased a little bit of that last year. And you got to think about it too. Like he's still raw. He came from Hobart, a Division
Division 3, and he's starting the NFL.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. He went in the second round last year, I think.
Yeah, he did. He went highest, and for somebody to go that in a Division 3 is impressive, and he has shown it. He beat out everybody. He started, and he looked really good. He is raw, but he's a nimble bear out there. He's just a big mauler that's got really quick feet, and if they hone it in, he could be an all-pro guard for years to come.
I completely agree with that. I agree with that. He's a stud in the making. If they can coach him up correctly and he lives up to that potential, he can be up there for sure. I agree. All right, so let's move on to I don't know which team we want to talk about. I don't want to spend too much time on these two teams. I guess we'll start with the Falcons first. So the Falcons start 5-0 last year. It looks like they have this good defense, and then they just shit the bed and fell apart down the stretch. I mean, Jesus Christ, what the hell happened to them?
I don't know. They look like wasn't it 7-0? Was it 5-0? Dan Quinn looked like a genius out there.
5-0, yeah, and he looked like he did look like a genius. That defense was like swarming around the ball. Then they just like flipped the switch to the other end, and Matt Ryan started throwing interceptions, and he started being unclutch, which they call him Matty Ice, but kind of never comes up big, to be honest with you.
He hasn't. He has been choking lately. It looks like he's just got like brain farts out there. Like, why would you throw that ball when the guy is triple covered?
Yeah. So, So the offense, I believe the offense finished top 10 in yards, but not in the top 20 in points. So that tells you a lot there.
Their red zone offense was atrocious last there. They could get down to there, very close. It's just there would be turnovers galore. And you know what else happened? Guys started shutting down Freeman too. He had that 3-week stretch where he was just unstoppable. He was popping out, popping off 160, 170-yard games, 3 touchdown games, and then that kind of faltered. And then Matty Ike, they would double cover Julio Jones, and then who would they throw to? So I think that has a lot to do with it. You would think they would add other options to help out Matty and Julio, but where are you going to go here? And the young running back they got to pair with Freeman got hurt too.
Yeah, Tevin Coleman.
Coleman.
Yeah, so my knock with Julio Jones has always been his red zone ability. And yeah, I get it. He was double covered last year, even though he had all those yards. But I believe it's only one time in his career that he's gone over double digits in touchdowns. And when you compare that to some of the other elite receivers in the game, he's not close in the touchdown totals, which is kind of crazy because a lot of people have him as like either the top receiver in the game or number 2 behind Antonio Brown. So my thing has always been with him is he's such a big dude and he's so athletic. You'd think he'd score more touchdowns, but he just doesn't.
Can you say, though, because early in his career, you got to remember they had Roddy White and Tony Gonzalez, so they had to spread the ball around a lot more, too, so that could have hampered his touchdown ability, too, to get more touchdowns. You could throw that out there and say that.
I guess, but, like, if you're fucking talented, you should be able to score. And then once those guys went, like, Tony Gonzalez retired, and you still had Roddy White, so you had the pair there, and he still wasn't scoring touchdowns. So, I don't know. I guess he high points the ball. Like, I don't want to say he doesn't, but I think there's other guys that are better in terms of, like, working that fade route and shit.
Megatron one.
Yes, and the back shoulder stuff. So, he's a guy that's, like, he runs, like, the deep crosses really well and, like, shit like that, the post patterns, stuff like that. Working over the middle of the field.
I agree with you, though. For his body type, he should be able to overtake some of these cornerbacks and get those touchdowns with the high fades and behind-the-shoulder throws.
Yeah.
For some reason, they don't take advantage of it.
Like, Antonio Brown has more touchdowns than him. Like, you wouldn't think that.
He's a touchdown machine.
He is. But in terms of, like, the size, I mean, like AJ Green, like I looked at, like, I forget when I did this, but, like, it was like a month ago, and I'm just looking at these touchdown totals. I'm like, wow, like Julio Jones doesn't score touchdowns. It's insane.
He just gets the yards.
Yeah, I mean that's how that Falcons season was last year. Like I said again, top 10 in yards, and they couldn't finish in the top 20 in points. That's, like, unacceptable.
It is. They would get those big breakaways, long runs, long throws, and just falter in the red zone. You can't have that.
Hey, I mean, Julio Jones, you got to go up and get those balls, man. I'll have to watch some tape sometime, but yeah, that surprises me. All right, so let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. The big storyline for me is I'm curious to see how Vic Beasley handles himself, because he goes from defensive end to 4-3 outside linebacker, and I guess, like, you know, if you watched him in the run game last year, he kind of got engulfed by bigger type of linemen. So being an outside linebacker, it gives him more freedom to kind of roam around and not have to take on blockers. But I would think that this takes away his pass rushing ability. So I don't really like this move.
I wasn't impressed by it either. I think even with his size, you got to keep him down in his natural position. Elvis Dumerville is a smaller guy too, and he seems to make it work. So unleash the guy. It just happens. You know, teach him how to shed the blocks and stop the run. You might be smaller, but use your speed to your ability. And I don't like them moving him out there either, because he looked completely awful out there. And I think you're taking away his prime ability to be a great elite pass rusher. You took him number 8 overall just to do that, to get pressure on the quarterback. So don't move him and make him learn a whole new way of playing football.
Like, you look at these defensive ends. They need guys that can pressure the quarterback. They don't have that right now. Adrian Claiborne, Derek Shelby, they signed from Miami. He's like more of a run stuffer. They're moving Brooks Reed from linebacker to defensive end. I don't know. Some of these moves just don't make sense. And you know, I like Dan Quinn, but I got to question some of these moves.
Yeah, I don't know why he would do that. And he's a defensive guru, so you'd think he'd be able to see this in a type of player like this. I don't know how they're going to – maybe he will change it if it doesn't turn out as well as he expects throughout the season again. Who knows?
Hopefully. I would hope so, because Vic Beasley should be a defensive end. Now, I know Von Miller was an outside linebacker to begin his career, and he had a bunch of sacks anyway. But Von Miller's a different type of fucking beast. So
Khalil Mack too, same type of guy, but way different talent. Vic Beasley's a longer, skinnier guy, kind of like a Randy Gregory.
yeah. So one more thing to discuss before we get to underrated, overrated. We got to talk about Desmond Trufant a little bit because that's like the lone star of this defense, and he's fucking legit. He's fucking really good.
Awesome. Their Trufant lineage comes down a long way. Very good players. His brother Marcus was awesome for Seattle for years.
Yeah. So, but other than that, it's lacking a little bit. Robert Alford, Jalen Collins was. I'm not a Jalen Collins fan. He's like stiff in the hips, and he's just a stiff type of player. So there's not much behind Trufant anywhere. They drafted a safety named Keanu Neal from Florida, I believe, in the first round. So
yep. They were
him.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but other than Trufant, there's not much on that secondary.
Secondary is very weak. It definitely is because they lost. Who's the safety they had there? Did they re-sign him?
Who are you thinking of?
I cannot think of his name.
There's a name I'm thinking about. I don't think he's on the team anymore.
They lost him, the free agency. I cannot think of his name. I'm drawing a blank.
I know their starters are Ricardo Allen and Keanu Neal. I know who you're talking. I just can't think of his name right now either.
William, I don't know, but they replaced Keanu Neal with him. He was a very solid safety that let go in free agency.
William Moore.
That's it, William Moore.
Yeah. There you go.
It was a very solid guy, but you're bringing a rookie in here. I know they're very high on him. They think he can be able to step up and make a lot of plays in here, but it's a younger secondary. I think it's gonna get picked on a lot, especially if you have no pass rush coming in. So you're gonna be exposed at the same point. I like Grady Jarrett on the team though too. I think I like
Grady Jarrett. Yeah, I'm with you there.
So they got a little bit, they're bringing in younger guys for pass rush, and they took a guy, linebacker, Deion Jones, too, who can fly all over the field, and maybe if they do some blitz packages, they'll be able to get some pressure there. But it's a very young and experienced team. Don't expect much from them. They're far from where they were going back to back-to-back NFC championship games and going for the Super Bowl. They are not the 12-4 teams that we're used to seeing in high-flying Atlanta offense. That's far, far away. They're in a rebuilding mode for sure.
Yeah. All right. We'll get to underrated, overrated right now. I'll throw a couple of names. We didn't talk about Rashid Hageman yet. That guy's a beast. I like him a lot. You talk about Jarrett. I'll throw his name in there too. I don't know if Trufant's necessarily underrated, but people don't know how good he is. And I'll throw a tackle's name. His name's Ryan. Pretty good as well. So. They got some good production from Jake Matthews last year after a disappointing first year there. So, and they got Alex Mack in free agency. And
that was huge.
Yeah, and Mack is a perfect fit for that zone blocking type of scheme for Shanahan. So, those are my guys.
I think overrated. Tyson Jackson's overrated. He's been a very huge disappointment out there. Courtney Upshaw, another guy, is a huge disappointment. These guys are very, very high picks. Underrated. I was going to say Alex Mack, but you touched on him already. I think Jacob Tamme isn't that bad of a tight end. I don't think he gets really noticed for what he did all over the years when he followed Peyton Manning, but I think he's a solid tight end. And you touched on Trufant, and Grady Jarrett was going to be my guy.
Yeah.
Underrated.
Okay. So we both have them 6 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we never said Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, I got 7 and 9.
I had them 8 and 8.
Give it 8 and 8. Okay.
And Andy Lariche is another guy that's underrated, the guard.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the last team in the division.
Woo! How about them Saints?
Yeah, well, they stink. So Drew Brees is not getting any younger.
No.
Dude, this team, man, they've been signing all the wrong free agents the last couple of years. Jarris Byrd, C.J. Spiller. Ew. What is this team doing? You trade Jimmy Graham.
I think they were trying to overturn it, just get a whole new team out there, just revamp everything. Ever since Spygate, it just seems like everything crumbled after that. They kind of just fell apart. after they won the Super Bowl, and then the Spygate thing came out, and they
the bully thing. What
not Spygate, the headhunting.
Headhunting. There you go.
Yeah, not Spygate. That's the headhunting thing. It just seems that it just all went downhill from there. But Drew Brees, they have been trying to find a replacement for him. I mean, he's still got it. Awesome Hall of Fame quarterback, but you got to try to bring newer guys in, younger guys too. They had Chase Daniel. He's a scrub, but it's just, where's New Orleans going? They look like Washington out there signing all these guys to big money that never amount to anything, just wasted money.
Like CJ Spiller, that's just terrible, man.
I think Bird was the worst signing.
Yeah, I mean, at least Bird had like some productive seasons before he came there. He just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. But CJ Spiller, like, everyone knows he's overrated, and they still gave him all this money, and he did nothing for them last year. So, man, I really don't want to talk about this team, but there are some solid players, actually, to be honest with you. I really like Teron Armstead, the tackle.
Yep.
I really like Cam Jordan, the defensive end. He had a pretty good year last year. And the biggest story for them maybe not the biggest story, but the coolest story for them, Delvin Breaux, the cornerback. So they got some guys. They're just like, there's just not much on that team, though, other than them.
It looks like they might be going back to the lowly Saints when they had Joe Horn and Aaron Brooks, like guys that we're used to seeing them being bottom feeders. But you still got that excitement with Drew Brees. I could see where they were kind of going with C.J. Spiller. You pair him out of the backfield with an arm with Drew Brees and him running up the field in the dome. But he's injury prone. He is overrated. I like Max Unger. I thought that was a good trade for the Saints when they got rid of Jimmy Graham, because they've turned that into some young pieces with their draft picks. You touched on Teron Armstead. I like their guy Andrus Peat from last year too. Another solid tackle that they kicked in the guard.
Yeah, they kicked him in the guard. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you're not going to have him start over Zach Street for Teron Armstead right now, but so I can see why they did that. Let's see. Who else is on? Oh, you know what?
Stephon Anthony's very good.
Yeah, he had a good rookie year last year. You know who I really like? I like Sheldon Rankins, the defensive tackle from Louisville. I was really high on him coming out.
It was a loaded defensive tackle class, and a couple of ththese guys, they were 4 or 5 guys we talked about in our draft show that we were really excited to see.
Yeah,
and he went there, and the other guy was from Louisiana Tech that went to the Panthers.
Yeah, Butler. Yeah. So, man, I guess we'll just get to overrated, underrated, because we gotta do another division, and I got a draft. So, let's see. I mean, I touched on Delvin Breaux. I like Sheldon Rankins, even though he's a rookie, so you can't really. So I guess Stephon Anthony is underrated.
Very underrated.
Willie Snead and Teron Armstead.
Jarvis Bird's overrated. I don't think he was worth all that money. I mean, he had very productive seasons out there, but they drafted Von Bell to take his spot. Sheldon Rankins, not much on the. Delvin Breaux is such an amazing story. And Cam Jordan.
And
he's very good.
A lot of length.
And what do you have the Saints going? You didn't say what the record was going to be.
10.
I got them going 5-11.
There you go. All right. So, I think I have them either 3rd or 4th in division. I don't know. I got them in Atlanta both going 6-10. They both stink. So, there is that. Any final thoughts before we get on to our next show?
Let's hope Cam Newton isn't as cocky as he is last year, and we don't see the pouting again after the losing, because you're a really sore winner, but you're also a very sore loser. So be humble, buddy.
All right. I agree with that, by the way. For Kyle Gaffner, I'm Adrian Fedke. The NFC North is next. We're out.